I am ArunKumar, doing my first year postgraduate program in management from Indian Institute of Technology, Tiruchirappalli. Today, I'm going to deal with how election affect Indian economy. Let's go in detail about it. The Indian economy typically slow down ahead of Lok Sabha election, even as government intervention turn opportunistic. A study of key economic variable over the past 30 years shows that economic activity lost face significantly every time there was a general election. Government spending went up in an average election year, which tend to fuel inflation rather than spur growth, suggesting that the extra public expenditure ahead of polls are largely in wasteful. The slowdown in investment and economic activity, however, is more pronounced this election season because the government failed to take policy decisions in the past couple of years while battling a raft of corruption charges. The corruption of steel, the consumption of steel, for instance, slowed every time in India had an election in the past 2 decades. The average growth in steel consumption in the last election year is 6.45 percentage points lower compared with the non-election year in this period. In the recent Lok Sabha election conducted in 2014, the fall has been worsened because of overall economic slowdown, with steel consumption falling 5.6% over the years ago period in the 9 months ended 31st December 2013. The new projected addition dry up in the election years. The investor and businessman postpone the key decision till a new government is formed and wait to gauge what the future policy environment will be before launching major projects. At the same time, the phase of industrial credit growth decelerates. The industrial credit growth slow down as there are few industrialists lining up for bank loan ahead of election. The average rate of industrial credit growth in election years was 1.5% lower in the past 3 decades compared with the non-election years. Policy uncertainty may not be the only reason for the decline in consumption of raw materials such as steel and cement. The steel consumption declined ahead of election as builders divert funds illicitly fund political campaign. The government spending rises in election year, although that affect inflation more than real economic activity. There is a clear spike in both total and revenue spending in election years, or if the elections are held in the month of April and May, the just preceding fine financial year. The average increase in nominal government spending during election year is 15.84% compared with 11.38% for non-election years. Looking at it another way, the increase in median spending in 14.73% compared with 11.28% for non-election years. The effect of government spending also clearly shows in the fiscal deficit numbers. Average fiscal deficit number for election year is 5.87% compared with 5.08% for the non-election years. To be sure, the fiscal deficit and government spending numbers don't seem to follow the pattern in 2013 and 14. However, this year, the government's hands were tied by threat of downgrade by rating agencies. In many cases, the government intervention in an election is designed to cater a special interest group rather than to provide a boost to overall economy. According to a World Bank study, they found that the politicians manipulate fiscal policies before election to provide target favors to specific intergroups, possibly in exchange for campaign support. The amount of farm loan given by state-owned banks was 5 to 10% higher in points during the election years than in years following an election. This report is according to Harvard University economist Sean Cole. In the election year, more loans are made to districts in which the ruling state party had a narrow margin of victory in the previous years. This targeting does not occur in non-election years. Politically motivated loans are costly, they are less likely to be repaid, and election years credit boom do not measurably affect agricultural output. Given that government spending is usually opportunistic ahead of election, the spike in spending fails to lift the economy and instead of stoke the fires of inflation. Inflation measured by gross domestic product deflator spikes up around national election. The average inflation during election in years is 8.56 since 1980, compared with 7.55% for the non-election years. Thus, we come to a conclusion, and it is evident from the above that during election, our Indian economy getting affected. Thank you.